Hello and welcome to the new section on using AI for framing and understanding the problem and the first lecture of this section in this course, AI for mastering complexity in problem solving and decision making. So in this section, as you can understand, is that we'll help you learn how to use AI for the first step of problem solving, that is of framing and understanding the problem. And there in this lecture, we will take a look at how can you use AI brainstorming assistants like ChatGPT or Notion AI to map out possible dimensions of the problem, right? Like stakeholders, dependency, causes, etc., etc. So let's take a look at how to use AI for framing and understanding the problem. Now here, our goal is primarily to get clarity in structure in the chaos, right? And how AI can help us do that in framing and understanding the problem. There are three ways, and one of the ways we will take it forward in this lecture and two in the next two lectures. The first way is to use AI brainstorming assistants to map all possible dimensions of the problem. The second is to ask AI to create causal maps or systems diagram that can explain how A affects B, what feedback loop may exist. And then the third thing in the third lecture we will talk about in this section is how to use AI summarizers or on reports or data to extract things like key themes, contradiction, and insights. Right. So that's what we will do in this section. So let's begin by taking a look at how to use AI brainstorming assistants. You know, it's one of the most powerful and practical ways to use AI for mastering complexity of by turning messy, unstructured problem into a clear mental map of dimensions, stakeholders, causes, and dependencies. Let's take a look at the steps that we can take, and let's also look at the real prompts and examples that you can start using immediately. So before we get into that, let's understand why use AI for problem mapping. When you face a complex issue, say declining sales, employee disengagement, or a delayed project, the first mistake that most of us do is to jump to a solution quickly, right? So too soon we jump to the solution. And AI brainstorming assistants like ChatGPT, Notion AI, Miro AI, or Whimsical AI can do a few things for us. They can expand our thinking beyond what is visible, right? They can help us uncover hidden relationship between elements, hidden relationship. Obvious is obvious, but what is not visible, they can help us do that. And they can also then organize this chaos into multi-dimensional structure that we can analyze better as human beings. Right. So that's why it makes great sense to use AI for problem mapping, the first step of problem solving. So what are the various steps, the framework that we can use? So here we have a 4D problem mapping framework with AI. Using mapping the problem with AI, a 4D framework. Let's take a look at that quickly. So, you can make AI do the heavy lifting through this framework. The first step is to define the core problem, where you ask AI things like, help me articulate the core problem in this one precise sentence and list possible subproblems. And what you get is a problem statement plus a list of subproblems. Then you get on to discovering the stakeholders, where you ask AI who are the direct and indirect stakeholders affecting or influencing this problem, and you get a stakeholders map, right? The third D in this is diagnose causes and dependency, where you ask AI to give you the possible causes and show how they interconnect or depend on each other. Also look at the dependencies. And that gives you the causal chain or cause effect maps. And the last D in this is to design dimensions and scenarios, where you ask AI what key dimensions, like social, economic, technological, regulatory, emotional, etc., define this problem space. So what are these dimensions that define the space? And there you get the dimensional framework or a scenario outline. So that's the framework. Let's take a look at an example of declining employee productivity. I'm not going to read out verbatim everything. I'm going to show you, and you can pause and take a look at and read many of the things that are there. So let's apply this framework. So first step obviously is to define the problem. So what can you do? You can give a prompt to AI. Now, what could be the prompt? It could be, as you can read here, is about asking. The key thing is to ask the AI to act as a strategic analysis, and then mention your problem, and then ask it to define the core problem clearly and identify possible sub problems. So that's what you need to do. And what you will get an output is the two things: core problem, right? In which it could be what you see here, and it will also define the sub problems. Like the core problem could be employee productivity has declined due to disengagement, unclear goals, and fragmented communication, and then define the sub problems like motivation, overload, poor management, feedback loops, unclear APIs, remote work friction, etc. etc. So, like this, you can define the problem. Then you discover stakeholders. Then you ask AI by giving a prompt again to list all stakeholders which are direct or indirectly affecting or influencing this problem. And also you ask them to classify as internal, external, or systemic. And the output could be something what you looks like. It gives you all the three categories and the stakeholders there, and how do what interests do they have and how do they influence, right? So that's how you get the second step done. The third step is to ask AI to diagnose causes and dependencies in this 4D model, and then you give a prompt like what you see here to identify 10 likely causes of productivity decline, and also to ask explain their dependencies. And the output could be, an example, a simplified output could be what you see here, like weak leadership, affecting unclear priority, clarity of priorities, and duplicated work, etc., etc. Now, you can also ask AI to visualize this using a graph or causal map using a Miro AI, Whimsical, or ChatGPT plugin. And this will look something like this, right? Right. The fourth step is to design dimensions and scenarios, where again you ask for a prompt. You ask AI to map the problem across different dimensions and you define them. Like in this case, we have said human, process, technology, etc., and also suggest how each dimension contributes and interacts. So remember, key thing in the prompt is to be as much specific as much you want to know. If you don't ask, you won't get it. And the output example could be, you get on the four dimensions of human, process, technology, environment, the description and dependencies. How do they, what do they mean, and how do they affect each other? Then let's take a look at the tools you can use. So there are a variety of tools. There are text-based exploration you can do with ChatGPT, Notion AI. It can help you generate structured list, causes dependency. Then there are visual mapping tools like Miro plus AI, Whimsical AI, Lucid Chart that can turn text output into causal or stakeholder diagrams that we want to see. Then there is collaborative thinking tools like FigJam AI, ClickUp AI that you can involve teams there while AI expand the idea. And then there are data linkage tools like Power BI Copilot, Airtable AI, etc., that can connect problem dimensions to the real matrices. So, what could be a pro workflow, a 30-minute mapping sprint that you can do? In 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes, you can describe the problem and you can give the prompt that you see here. In next 5 minutes, you can identify all stakeholders by the prompt that you see here. Then in another 10 minutes, you can explore root causes and feedback loops by asking AI to explain how A leads to B and which feedback loops exist. In another 10 minutes, you can build your problem dimension map by asking Miro, like of generating a visual map, right? So that's a 30-minute mapping sprint. Fast, isn't it? So remember to use AI as a system thinker. You know, why we hit this, we asked it to use as a strategist. Now you can also ask to switch roles, right? You can ask AI to act as a system thinker by asking a different question like what interdependencies am I missing? You can ask it to work as a social, you work act as a sociologist, but what social and behavioral patterns might be driving this. Or you can ask it to act as a data analyst. Which variables should I track to quantify this connectivity? And this multi-lens approach can help you see the full system, just not the symptoms, right? So what do we do next now? So in the next lecture, we will look at the second part of framing and understanding the problem. We will take a look at how can you ask AI to create causal maps or system diagrams. So thank you so much for watching this first lecture on AI for framing and understanding the problem. I hope you're continuing to learn new things, continuing to enjoy. And I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions and do download the PDF file to take a look at anything that you need to.